The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome to the bonus show. Good bonus show today. First story. A lot of people have sent me this. Tomi, or I think she pronounced
Tommy.
Oh, is it Tommy?
Yeah.
I thought it was Tomi. Tomi Lahren.
Lahren. You got that. You got that completely wrong. It's Tomi Lahren.
So I thought it was Tomi Lahren, and it's actually Tomi Lahren.
Yeah, it's just one of those names you can't get down.
Tomi Lahren is a conservative columnist for The Blaze. She is a combative. She has a combative style when being interviewed by others. She is a very, very, what would you call her? Sort of aggressive advocate for right-wing beliefs?
Yeah, and I mean, she's very young, she's attractive, so she's kind of like the new heartthrob and the new voice for the conservative movement, perhaps the next generation.
Is heartthrob a term that's applied to women, or is that just...
I think so.
Okay, you do. All right.
I'm going to use it.
Pat has many female heartthrobs that he's aware of. Okay, fair enough. So listen, I don't even know where to start with the story, but long and short of it is that she explained that she's pro-choice, okay? Tomi Lahren said during a video that she is pro-choice, and she explained why she's pro-choice. And she's been pulled off of the air for a week, as confirmed by The Blaze, over those comments, saying that she supports abortion rights, and that if you support limited government, it would be hypocritical to believe the government should decide what women are allowed to do with their bodies. I agree. I agree with Tomi Lahren about this.
That's absolutely correct. And she said this on The View, I think, this past week. But a couple months ago, she was arguing the pro-life position, not just, in support of it, but saying that if you have an abortion, that's equal to murder. She was featured in a video that seemed to go down this slippery slope of women saying, I have the choice. And then it's like a parody. And they get to the thing of, I'll have a choice to terminate my pregnancy from the very beginning, from the second trimester, from the third trimester. And then they go ridiculous and say, after the kid's born, after it's getting married, whatever.
So it's not like this has been her only position, but she did say this on The View, and she's been suspended. And the fascinating thing to me about this is it's the right that often claims the left stifles true freedom of speech, doesn't allow for opinions that are outside of the litmus test that is often attributed to being on the left. And this is an example of the right doing exactly that, and they seem to be completely missing the irony of this. Right,
I get that point. Glenn Beck seemed to respond to this the other day, and he said, well, we do have people who are pro-choice that work for us.
Yeah.
But I think the reason he got angry was because it seems to just come out of nowhere. And Tomi Lahren's contract with The Blaze ends, I think, in September.
Right.
And it's clear that given The Blaze's financial troubles, she's probably going to move on from there.
Oh, you think?
So
I didn't know The Blaze was in trouble financially.
Oh, they absolutely are, yeah. They're being pulled off of stations and losing advertisers and the rest of it.
Wow. Great news.
I think that there's no chance Tomi Lahren's going to come back to The Blaze. So I think maybe by coming out as pro-choice, she's positioning herself as a more rational human being, and maybe trying to pull a Megyn Kelly and go to NBC or maybe even on The View.
That's who I thought of, yeah. So I don't actually know what Megyn Kelly's personal politics are. She, on the Howard Stern show, she said, I'm liberal about some things and conservative about others. But certainly in moving from Fox News to NBC, there's the idea that she's going to be no longer the sort of right-wing de facto talking head or whatever. And maybe Tomi Lahren is pushing the same idea.
And she could still be a conservative, but she just has to come out as a little bit more moderate. I think she can't be super far right like on The Blaze.
There's an interesting new report. This comes out, I think it's almost yearly. The 2017 World Happiness Report has found that Norway is the happiest nation in the world, followed by Denmark at number 2, Iceland at number 3, Switzerland at number 4, and Finland at number 5. What do you notice, Pat, about all of those countries?
Oof, I don't know. Is there a connection that links all these countries?
Well, they all have relatively cold weather.
Yeah, cold
Switzerland
weather.
The least, right, being the furthest south, but they have relatively cold weather.
It's almost as if they're connected in some way, or that they have democratic socialism as their government.
That's also interesting in terms of the form of government, although Switzerland controversially invoking some new restrictions on immigration quotas, which are described by some as not exactly left-leaning, but other than that, generally considered a pretty left-leaning place.
Was it Switzerland on the top of the list, or was it Sweden?
According to the report I'm looking at, it says it's Switzerland at number 3.
Okay. Yep,
Yeah.
you're correct.
All right. Glad we cleared that up. So this was of particular interest to me for two different reasons. Very soon, I'm going to be doing a book recommendation on the show where I will recommend the book Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman, the great Daniel Kahneman. He talks about these happiness rankings, and he points, there's a couple interesting things to look at. Number one, there's a couple different ways to get self-reported happiness, right? One is you do there's a scientific name for this, but it's basically a ladder test. Imagine a ladder with 10 steps, 10 being the most happy you could imagine being, and the first step on the ladder being the least happy. Where do you believe that you are?
Right.
Okay. And then separately, there's looking objectively at your life, how satisfied are you with it? And the self-satisfaction indicator is sometimes confused with self-reported happiness. And it's really two different things. You can ask someone, do an evaluation of your life circumstances and tell us how satisfied you are with those circumstances. That may get you a very different answer than when you ask someone, hey, how frequently do you find yourself being happy relative to not happy on a day-to-day basis? Those are two very different questions.
Absolutely, and this is one of those things you have to do self-reporting on because you can't measure whether someone's objectively happy, even if they have seemingly a good standard of living for that country. And part of it has to do with, is everyone taken care of? Is everyone healthy? And another part is just, the culture. If it's too materialist, I think, in a way, or we're too obsessed with the wrong things, like perhaps here in the United States only ranked, I think, 13th.
Yeah.
So you would think that, we're the richest country the world's ever seen. We should be much higher, but I think we get bogged down by two minor things.
This is why it's very difficult to really get accurate rankings. But there's another thing that I want to discuss here because of the weather thing. Many people, when you talk to them about why they make decisions to live in certain places or why they think they would like to live in other places, former producer Lewis comes to mind. Climate and weather, temperature really, is very prominently stated. Every single study that has looked into this shows that on overall well-being and happiness, climate does not make a difference.
Wow, okay.
Now, many people might hear this and they might say, no, David, listen, I hate the cold, and I know I'd be way happier if I moved to some place that it's warm. You may also survey people who have been living in a warmer climate for most people would prefer a warmer rather than colder climate. Maybe some people prefer a colder climate, and this would also apply to them. But if you ask people who have moved within 3 years to a place where the climate is better, they will still be affected and find themselves on a day-to-day basis happier as a result of the climate. But every serious study that looks at this finds that beyond 3 years, climate has no impact on your happiness. And you can sort of imagine why, which is, let's explore it this way. How much enjoyment, Pat, do you get from driving your car?
It depends. If I'm driving to work and there's a bunch of traffic, I get zero enjoyment. If I'm on a joyride on a road trip somewhere, I like it a lot.
So what you're saying is it's actually not an issue of the car specifically. It depends whether you're stuck in traffic or on a joyride or whatever.
Well, if I'm driving a nice car, I would enjoy it more.
Driving your car. How much,
my car?
Your specific car, how much pleasure do you get from driving the car?
On average?
Sure.
At a scale of 1 to 10.
Yeah.
I'd say like a 6 or 7.
Okay. And more importantly, when do you get the level 6 or 7 pleasure from driving the car? Like, are you getting the pleasure from driving the car right now?
Well, I'm not driving the car.
Okay, exactly.
Okay, yeah.
So when do you get the pleasure?
When I'm actually driving the car.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, if you're driving the car and you're stuck in traffic, though, you're not getting a 6 or 7 pleasure, right? Because you're not thinking about driving the car. You're thinking about being stuck in traffic.
Right. I'm not actually experiencing the wind rushing through the car and, going down the road and seeing all the sights. No, I'm stuck. I'm stationary.
So would it be fair to say that even though you believe your car gives you a 6 to 7 level of enjoyment, even when driving the car, you often don't have a 6 or 7 of enjoyment because you're thinking about other things?
Well, that's why I said I think it averages out to a 6 or 7 because if all the circumstances are great, I enjoy it 9 or 10. If I'm stuck in traffic, it's a 2 or a 3.
So what Daniel Kahneman writes about is exactly what Pat is telling us, which is once you assess the level of pleasure you get from driving your car, you realize that you only get that level of pleasure from driving your car when you are actively thinking about only the act of driving the car. This is exactly what applies to climate and weather, which is when you ask people who live in warm climates, How much pleasure do you get from the warm climate? People will think about it and they'll say, oh, I like the warm climate. I think I get about a 6 or 7 pleasure from the climate. And then the follow-up question is the most important one. When do you get that level of pleasure from the climate? And they'll say, I don't really think about the climate ever because I'm just so used to it, its background. And that is exactly why once you get accustomed to a climate, it does not any longer affect your level of enjoyment, because the enjoyment you get from it is only when you're thinking about the climate, which is what being asked the question actually forces you to do.
See, I absolutely agree with that, because being in New England, we get all sorts of weather here. And when the summer finally starts coming around, as it is now, I'm getting super excited because I can't wait to start enjoying that climate.
Because it's a change.
It's a change. And then, I'll hear from other people at Dissenting View during the summer. They say, I can't wait till winter starts up so I can go skiing. And it's way too hot right now. So because you know that the climate's always changing, you never get used to one particular climate, and you enjoy the change.
Every indication is that after 3 years of just living in one climate, it will no longer impact your happiness positively or negatively, interestingly enough. Okay, last thing I want to touch on. One thing that happened during Monday's James Comey hearing, FBI James Comey hearing, where he announced that he is investigating, indeed, Donald Trump's connection to Russia, is that he testified under oath, mind you, that he hates the New England Patriots football team.
Under penalty of perjury.
Yeah. What did you make of that?
I already knew.
You did?
Not only is he not a Patriots fan,
he's
not
a
only
Patriots
does
hater.
he hate the Patriots, he's also a Giants fan.
That is absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
Although, wouldn't it be worse if he was a Jets fan from our point of view? Like, aren't we more
Jets,
anti-Jets than Giants?
Yeah, we hate them both equally. He was in town to open up an FBI building out here.
Classy.
And all the reporters were demanding that he respond to the Trump-Russia allegations, because this was before the congressional hearing took place.
Right.
And instead, he just released the fact that he was a Giants fan and hated the Patriots. So that was kind of how he dismissed the topic there.
I'm kind of joking, but does this impact your opinion of James Comey?
No.
Yeah, me neither.
I don't care.
I think the guy's a loser, so it doesn't really matter whether. No, honestly, I think that he is absolutely a competent and very good type of person for this job. I just think it's not really clear what his degree of collusion or corruption is. The entire Hillary email, letters, and press conference, whatever. I don't have the highest opinion of James Comey.
Right. I mean, I always trust what he's saying, though. I think whatever he reveals is true in the result of a thorough investigation.
It's just a matter of should he be talking about it.
Yeah. I mean, it's more about judgment and timing than the veracity of the claims and the reports that we see.
Yeah. No, I guess I agree. So anyway, if James Comey hates the Patriots, what else is new? Most people do.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.